Welcome in. It's a new series at Soccer Down here called the Sunday Set Piece. I'm Jason Longshore, and thanks for hanging out with us on the SDH Network. This is a new series that will hopefully be weekly. There might be some gaps in the schedule, but an opportunity on Sundays to dig a little bit deeper into things that aren't related to the results, the goals, the great moments, the highlights, the standings, those kinds of things, deeper conversations about aspects of the game or the game itself. This was inspired by the Sunday Conversation on ESPN SportsCenter back in the day, and reading about the history of ESPN. That started as a bit of a happy accident, where it was a conversation with, if I remember correctly, Arnold Palmer about golf, just about the state of golf. And it became a staple in that show for years and years. Don't know if we'll be able to get to that kind of a level. I hope so. But I hope this is a aspect of the SDH Network that allows us to dig a little bit deeper into some of the interesting stories in the game, some of the interesting people in the game, talk about some of the issues, both good and bad, about aspects of the game. And we're going to start off this week with a conversation that Tyler Pilgrim of the Scarves and Spikes podcast had with me at our event at Sweet Auburn BBQ in McDonough, Georgia on April 28th. We were there to help raise money for the mini pitch project that's going on at Alexander Park in the city of McDonough. And our conversation kind of went all over the place, and it was completely unrehearsed. It was just our thoughts and reflections on things about the game, where the game is right now in our neck of the woods, what can change, what needs to change, and what is going to change as we are just a couple of years away from a World Cup in Atlanta and a whole lot more. So that's the kinds of things that I think we'll get into on the Sunday Set Piece. You're going to hear from a lot of different folks in the Soccer Down Here universe, but also hopefully some folks from the American soccer universe as well, to talk about some of the bigger picture items in the sport. So first off, a little bit of an apology about the sound quality here. This was a live recording that we did. So we were on the patio at Sweet Auburn BBQ, which, by the way, if you have never been to, highly recommended. Amazing food. A great supporter of their local communities because there are multiple locations. Big thank you to Sweet Auburn BBQ. Big thank you to the Southern Crescent Soccer Foundation. Thanks to everybody who came out and helped raise money for the mini pitch project. But the audio quality is not studio quality, not perfect, but I don't think it takes away from the conversation. So please enjoy. You will be hearing in the coming weeks from a conversation that Madison Cruz and I had after training one day with Quentin Westberg, Atlanta United goalkeeper. That might end up being a couple of episodes, actually, of the Sunday Set Piece, because it was that engaging of a conversation with Quentin. So stay tuned for that. But for this week, it'll be myself and Tyler Pilgrim chatting about soccer in McDonough, soccer in Henry County, soccer in Atlanta, and soccer in the United States, as we kind of take stock of where things are in 2024 on April 28th. Please enjoy.
Reset a little bit here. It's Jason Longshore, it's Tyler Pilgrim. We are talking Atlanta United. We're going to talk a lot of different things soccer-wise. Hanging out here at Sweet Auburn BBQ in McDonough. A great fundraiser today for the mini pitch project at Alexander Park in McDonough that the Southern Crescent Soccer Foundation is putting together. We've talked about growing the game a lot, Tyler, and mini pitches. U.S. Soccer Foundation, for example, just announced that they had opened their 700th, and there's others opening up all over the country. There's a lot opening up all over the state of Georgia right now. One up with our friends at Georgia Impact in Canton. Those pitches being available for the community, when we start to talk about growing the game and changing it in this country, and especially in our communities, they're vital.
You know, I actually just, on the way over here, I was having the conversation with my son about this particular mini pitch, and they're all, they all mean, I think, the same thing to the community that they're put in. But he's been playing soccer for years now, and he was asking questions about like what is this exactly? Like, what is a mini pitch? And I was like, it is a place for anybody to go play a pickup game of soccer, to go and, if it's open, it's free, it's available to go to. There's so many opportunities for something like this, and I think in a community where you don't have that, where your soccer fields typically, they might be open, but if something's going on there, then you can be run off.
They might be locked, or they might be taken.
Yeah, exactly, and this is one of those where it's close to a very populated area. People can walk to it if they want to. You can go and you can meet people that you don't know and go and play a game, and of any age, right?
Yeah.
Like any age can go and just have a good time. And I just think it's such a vital thing that is happening here, but everywhere in the state. Like, it's fun to see, because I wish I had that when I was a kid.
Yeah, same.
And I didn't. Yeah, I mean, we went to the same high school, which is so funny to me. But yeah, I mean, we didn't have that opportunity, and I explained it to him like, it's like a pickup basketball game.
Yep.
You have basketball courts on, sometimes it's a half-court basketball court on what used to be a parking lot. Well, this one in particular used to be a pool back in the day.
Yep.
And so you're taking something that is not being used anymore. It's been a parking lot in this case since I was a kid, and you're turning it into something where the community can come together.
What I love too, from a soccer perspective, is it promotes small-sided play, and I think we've kind of got our heads around this in the state of Georgia and in the country in terms of kids playing small-sided for a long time. They don't need to play 11v11 until they're teenagers. Small-sided is even good for those teenagers to get a chance to play. It changes the skill set development. It creates a different style of play. If you want to go really deep into U.S. soccer and the kind of players that we want to see, we need more technical players. We need players who can play in combinations. These are things that a mini pitch really helps create. It can help change the identity of the players who use it as soccer players, because of the surroundings, because of the size, because of the kinds of games they're going to get. It changes the kinds of players that we produce in a really good way, in my opinion.
Yeah, you look at it, I think I look at it anyway in the same way that I look at futsal, because
same idea.
Yeah, you're creating players that are very technical on the ball, and they're comfortable playing in tight spaces. And I think when you have U12 kids playing on almost a full-size pitch.
Crazy.
It allows bad habits to creep in.
Yeah, it does.
It definitely.
Kick it far, run.
Boot it, It doesn't promote control. It doesn't promote technicality. But you get a 5v5 going on in a very tight space, and you have to control the ball. You'll be punished very quickly. And you have that in many countries in the world. And it's going the right direction here.
It absolutely is. Yeah, sure. This is a step that can help, I think, accelerate it a little bit. That's just like from the soccer nerd perspective of why I think mini pitches are important. When you start talking about community and what they can do, it takes a space that right now is being used occasionally for cars to park on.
Yeah.
It turns that into a safe space to play, and in an area where kids can just walk over, ride a bike over, and go play something that they love to do, or something that they can discover that they love to do.
Yeah, because there's always going to be the conversation of, kids don't get outside like they used to, right? You got video games, you got everything else.
It's not going to change all of a sudden. Like, look, it's a different world than it was when we were kids.
But if you're that kid that just happens to stumble up on this place, and that you got the park there, you're out and about, you have the opportunity to go enjoy that moment. You have an opportunity to enjoy, meeting other people, and even beyond that, you look at what it could mean for the World Cup coming here in a couple of years.
Yep.
You have a place to go that is a communal spot anybody can go to. You can do watch parties. You can do, you can do birthday parties. You can do all kinds of stuff at a place like this. But hey, 2026, if you can't make it to the game at the Benz, you can go here and have a watch party and enjoy it just the same, and maybe play a pickup game while you're there too.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that's going to change the culture of this. And you mentioned high school, and that the high school just up the road, Eagles Landing, is in the final 8 of the 5A state championships.
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever happened before.
I don't think it has either.
When I told another former Eagles Landing player about this, when I saw him, one of the regional development coaches for Atlanta United, he was in shock that this had happened. It's wild, and that's what I'm seeing doing the high school games that we do on the Soccer Down Here network. I was down in Perry on Thursday for the girls match with Perry and Trinity Christian, and there were maybe just under 1,000 people there. And the boys team was there to support the girls team from Perry, and they're doing chants, and they're trying to sound like a supporter section and all that kind of stuff. And I'm seeing that in places all over the state. It's not just the Metro Atlanta schools. It's not just the private schools. It's the further you go, you're still seeing like this growth of the game. I was talking on our what felt like an interminable bus ride last night from Soldier Field to the airport. I was talking to Garth Lagerway about this. Like, I feel like that change of when we were kids, not dating ourselves, but when we were kids, you still had the idea that you would have people who were football people or basketball people or baseball people, that time especially, who would talk junk about soccer, who would say you shouldn't play it, who would have a million different stupid excuses for it. You had the sports editors who would say, we're not going to cover that. The only time they would cover it is where there was a fight or crowd violence or something somewhere in the world. Yep. And that was going on not that long ago that some outlets were doing that. It's changed a lot, and I think what I'm seeing at the high school level is probably the most tangible thing to it to me. It feels completely different. When I go to do a game in Gainesville, for example, and both sides of the stands are full. One side is Gainesville High School. The other side is Johnson High School. It's back and forth. It's a great game. It's got intensity. It's got atmosphere. It felt like Friday nights in the fall. I don't think that generation of 14 to 18-year-olds coming up right now have the same preconceptions about the sport that previous generations did, and that's only going to increase the further down the road we get.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing to me, because everybody knows that that Friday Night Lights kind of feeling, right? I mean, that's a very American thing, but to have that same kind of vibe at a soccer match, a high school soccer match, is unheard of, really. Over the past few years. And I saw the video you posted, and
It's wild.
It is wild.
Got to call a game from the stands, and it was so cool. It was just such an amazing experience.
Because if you heard the audio of that and you didn't know any better, you could have been at a League 2 game in France. You could have been
South America easily.
South America, yeah. And that's what's so beautiful about it. Like it brings a vibe, right?
Yeah.
And I think now that you're seeing that kind of stuff, these kids that are coming through that kind of set of situations, those scenarios, those nights, are gonna feel a lot more special. They're gonna feel like, hey man, we're on equal footing with the football team, with the baseball team, all that kind of stuff. And it's a beautiful thing to see. I had a game today with my son, and on the other side of the entire soccer complex, they were having another match, and somebody had brought a vuvuzela. And you hear the cheering. You could tell when they scored a goal. Yeah. You could hear that loud freaking instrument. But you didn't really even have that in rec soccer.
Yeah.
And here it is, in high school, rec, academy. Like, it's a beautiful thing to see.
I feel like it's really turning a corner here in Georgia, where it hadn't necessarily done that before. It's not like it felt in the past where, okay, it's doing well, it's good, a lot of kids are playing, but it's over here on the side in its own world. And maybe some of it is just doing what I do with 92.9 The Game and being in that conversation to where we can talk about last night with Garth Lagerwey, for example, asking him like, hey, you're part of an organization that has the Falcons. It's draft weekend. What have you learned from talking to Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris about how they look at building their roster? Completely different setup, but have you taken anything away from that? And he's able to talk about the connections with players. I think Raheem told Garth that they try to have 10 contact points on every player before they draft them. That can be a conversation with a position coach. That can be a conversation with their former high school coach, that kind of stuff. And Garth is like, that's a great thing to aspire to that we're not really able to do exactly. If you're going to scout, let's go to Saba, for example, and you want to bring Saba in, you're probably not going to get to 10 contact points with him. But that's the level of in-depth work that the Falcons go through that Atlanta United says, hey, might not get there exactly because of the worldwide nature of this, but that's something we can look for. When you talk about getting to know a player, getting another character, their personality, all that stuff that is so vital, that's something that you can pick up in shared information. Soccer now in Atlanta and in Georgia, it's just part of the sports conversation. It's not over here and being on both sides of it, gate kept away from the football and basketball and baseball conversation. It's just part of the conversation. And that's been the most rewarding thing about all of this to me. I think things like the Alexander Park mini pitch just continue to take that to another level where kids can go to Alexander Park, they can play baseball, they can, I think there's basketball there, they can do lots of different things, but they can also then play soccer. And some of them might find that soccer is the thing they want to do.
Yeah, and you take that, and then you grow up, you go to high school, you play. And going back to like the conversation with the Falcons, I mean, what better person or a group of people to get your information from than somebody like a high school or even college coach, but especially a high school coach, because it's much more intimate at that level.
You're seeing them in class. You're talking to their teachers about what they're doing in the classroom. Are they respectful? Those kinds of things. You're getting all of that, and where you can take a soccer conversation and learn from that and say, you know what, we can do elements of that. We might not be able to do it exactly. Right. It's not going to be the same way because it doesn't translate to every country and every player we're looking at. But that's the level of in-depth knowledge that we want on a player we're going to bring into the building. Yeah, and so I'll give you a funny story that ties into all this. At the training ground about a month ago, we're there, the first team's training. I had to go to the restroom, right? So I walk across the main little drive to go to where the academy typically trains at. Yep. And I'm walking up, and there are a group of academy kids that are out there, and they are they're chatting, they're horse playing around, they're having fun, they're having a good old time. Well, they had Moe's catered that day, and they had decided to do like a pickup game of, remember tinfoil baseball? Uh-huh. You'd wrap up your tinfoil. Yeah. So they were doing that, and they were having a good time. Well, I went to the bathroom, come out. As I opened the door, there's a piece of tinfoil coming at me like full speed, and it just misses me. And they all kind of had that like, oh crap, look, Yeah. And one of the academy kids goes, hey, like, I could hear it, but he was trying to like keep it hush hush. Yeah. He goes, hey, did you say sorry to him, man? Like, yeah, hey, did you say sorry? Like, you need to go say sorry. And the guy was like, okay, he walks over, he says, I'm really sorry for that. And I was like, dude, it's no problem. But it's that kind of accountability and that kind of just something as simple as, going out of your way to be respectful to somebody. And it's not just about being a soccer player. It's about being a good person. And you see, Atlanta has admittedly made a very big deal about that from the beginning. But then to expound upon that, you go and you have a conversation like you're talking about with Garth where, go over to Georgia or go over to France or Norway and talk to Stian or, Tristan Muyumba or Saba's. You can talk to the academy coaches they came up with, stuff like that if you can. Yeah, and just see what they have to say. Yeah, it's interesting how And I see this from a coaching perspective too, where Pep Guardiola loves basketball, and he loves to pick the brain of basketball coaches about movement, and when you're 5v5 and you're trying to basically work the ball around the perimeter to get a good shot, it's not that different than in the attacking third trying to work the ball for a good shot, the movement, all of those different things. So, I've seen that from a coaching perspective where coaches learn from coaches in other sports. I love to see what we're seeing here where, again, soccer's not being kept over here in the silo, and soccer people have to come out of that too. It's twofold. We've had this conversation before about, I've challenged people in the soccer world to get out of their comfort zone, go talk to brand new fans, go talk in a way that brand new fans want to come back and will learn from the game, and not dumb it down, but find a way to lift all of it up. That's how we're going to grow it. I spoke to Georgia Impact. They had their end of the season banquet. It's a big fundraiser for their foundation. They honored community leaders. It was very cool to go speak at it. It was a lot different than speaking on the radio where you don't see the audience, and it's a whole room full of about 500 people. That was a little challenging. And a lot of kids. And what I kind of came back to, the message I wanted to share was be a good teammate. And you do that in a lot of different ways. For me, I want to be a good teammate to the game because the game's given me everything. The game has given me career. The game's given me friends. The game's given me a way to do what I do. So I want to get back to the game. But I think kids can understand that too, and that just being a good teammate, picking each other up, supporting each other on the field, we can carry that forward in our lives. But if you're in the soccer world, I do feel like there's an obligation to giving back to the game and growing the game and bringing new people to it.
Yeah, and I think it's easy in any sport to just kind of get caught up in that. I'm into the game. I know the game, so I know more than you do, right?
Yep.
It's a very easy thing to kind of fall into, and it's something that you have to be cognizant of and stop, because you learn so much from hearing somebody that doesn't know anything about the game, because they have a totally different mindset. And we had Kaylin Kyle on, and she said something from her hair studio, which was really funny.
That was a brilliant interview, by the way.
That was hilarious. But she said, I used to make fun of the people that would try to play, have an opinion about the game that never played the game.
Yep.
And she was like, I quickly realized that is a terrible way to look at things, because for those that have never played the game but cover it and watch it so much, you look at it in a totally different way. I mean, if you're on the pitch and you're playing in an actual 11v11 match, you see things in one way, which is great. You learn the game, you learn the ins and outs of it. But when you're watching from the stands or watching from TV, you see it in a totally different way.
Yep.
And those two don't have to be on separate sides by themselves. Those two need to come together and help grow the game, and that's what you see in some other sports.
Yeah.
And I mean, soccer is one of the fastest growing sports in the nation. This is where you're at as a culture, as a sporting culture, as a soccer culture in the U.S. I just think you have to be open. You have to be open to hearing the other opinions.
Yeah, it's essential. I've always said that on 92.9 The Game, when I'm on with people, Hugh Douglas was always one of the best in terms of the questions he would ask, because they weren't coming purely from a soccer perspective. They were coming from his perspective. And he would ask questions that would make me think. And it was great. We can sit here and rattle off the cliches and do that game all day. But when somebody asks you a question that's a little bit different because they come from a completely different perspective, you can get better at what you do by figuring out how to answer it, figuring out how to put it into words that make sense for everybody to understand. I think we get in this game at times, we get hung up on terminology, we get hung up on what the English do or what the League MX fans do, and it's not about that. It's about growing what we have and celebrating what we have and seeing it go to this next level that we're only scratching the surface of what we're going to see here in these next few years with Copa America this summer, a miniature World Cup summer for Atlanta, with two of the biggest games in the U.S. this year. The U.S. national team playing here, Argentina opening the tournament. Probably Club World Cup games here in 2025. It's not determined yet, but I would think we'd get games in that. We know how many World Cup games we're getting. We're getting a semifinal.
Yep.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think if the U.S. and Mexico gets the Women's World Cup in 2027, which they would have to be considered the favorites, I think Atlanta could get the final. It's a little bit different setup than the men's tournament, but I don't think it was an accident that the U.S. and Mexico Federation started their FIFA tour here.
Yep.
I think they want the final in Atlanta. Maybe we get Olympic Games in 28 where they're not all going to be played in L.A. You know, 96 we had Olympic Games played in Birmingham and Miami and D.C. That could happen too, along with Leagues Cup growing, along with Club World Cup potentially getting into that down the road. Like so many different things. We're at a point, it's the greatest potential accelerator for this sport in this country ever, because we have a foundation now to build from. And going all the way back to the reason why we're here and helping to build a mini pitch at Alexander Park with Southern Crescent Soccer Foundation, you didn't have those sorts of things in 1994. And 1994 gave us Major League Soccer and gave us so many different things about this game that are amazing. But now you have that foundation, you're continuing to build on it, and you're going to get this accelerator coming into the scene. It's going to be very, very different in the next decade for soccer in this country, and might upset a few apple carts, but I think for the kids coming up now who have fallen in love with the game, it's just a totally different world.
Yeah, what you see now is going to be vastly different in 15 or 20 years, and I mean that in many, many different ways, but I mean just the talent. You know, you have kids that are being born around this time, that 15 or 20 years from now, the changes that are being made with the World Cup coming here.
Just think about kids who, you know, when I was a kid and I fell in love with the game, it was Diego Maradona for me.
Yep.
I had a chance to watch him before I graduated high school. I probably had the chance to watch him on TV 15 times, maybe.
Yeah, if that, yeah.
Maybe, just because you couldn't see it. I had a videotape that I wore out, that's for sure. But you just had limited access. Now, kids here who fall in love with the game can go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, can watch the games, can see a kid like Caleb Wiley and say, man, he's from here. I can be like that. I want to do that. And they grow up with it. They're embedded in it. They watch in a different way because they get to see it all the time. They notice the little things that we might not have seen at that point back in the day. It's just so different already, let alone 10 years down the road where there's so much more to work with for kids growing up in the game, the generations to come. I mean, I've said it before, I really feel like it's going to be soccer and basketball that are what drive sports in this country in the next 20 years.
Yeah, you have, I mean, even right now, Atlanta United is maybe one of the standouts in terms of, we know that they're a standout in attendance, right?
Yep.
Like that, and contrary to what Jim Curtin might say, it's not just because it's a party.
Don't get me started on Jim Curtin. Don't do it.
I'm trying. Look, we've also gone almost an entire show, and not mention the name Lionel Messi.
Yep.
But you know, you talk about Maradona, and you have kids now that are literally able to see, arguably the best player of all time.
Yeah.
In person.
Yep.
We'll not talk about ticket prices.
Well, there's that. It was like that when Jordan came and played here too.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, inflation a little bit different, but yes, it's the greats are the greats, and those ticket prices reflected at times.
Yeah, and that's part of the game. We get that. But I mean, you have the infrastructure. I think that's the biggest thing. You have the infrastructure, and the infrastructure starts with something as small as a mini pitch. And for me, you know, like this one kind of hits home. And I've told you the story. We've talked. But I mean, I grew up playing baseball at this park.
Yep.
And I have very vivid memories, some of my earliest memories, in fact, of being in this park and being able to go and just hang out. And we played baseball, and then after baseball, we would go and, down to the creek that runs through the park,
Yeah.
But this spot where this mini pitch is at, I mean, I've scraped knees in this parking lot before. I have memories there. And so now my kids can go,
Yep.
and they have a place to go. And absolutely, I will make it a point to go and spend time at this thing, because that's what it's there for. And for my children, and for, children of maybe people who are listening at this point, like, you have one of the best stadiums in the entire world in your backyard. You have a place to go play. You have U.S. Soccer's headquarters coming to, again, your backyard.
Just down the road, which is
down the road.
bizarre.
So, it's just, like, it's such a great thing to have for now, but even better for, 15 years from now, for the kids when they get a little bit older, because they're going to reap all the benefits of every bit of this, from seeing the famous players play. You have Thiago Almada playing in Atlanta United right now, and that is
a World Cup champion playing in Atlanta.
Deal. That's a huge deal. And I think sometimes it gets glossed over.
Yeah, it does.
So
we take it for granted.
100%.
Look, Frank DeBoer was not wrong when he said that we were a little spoiled after the early success. I know Frank meant something a little different, but he wasn't wrong, and that happens, and it's ultimately a good thing that we had that early success. It has set the bar very high. It does create some conversations and narratives that can get off the rails at times, and we know how that goes, but it's a good thing that there is interest. It's a good thing that there's always things to talk about, and that's where this game is right now. It's really special. Where it's going is what is the really interesting thing for me, trying to imagine it, because it's so different than it was before. We're here at Sweet Auburn BBQ in McDonough, raising money for a mini pitch to be built in McDonough, Georgia. That's kind of crazy. This is where the game is right now, and the kids in that neighborhood, if everything comes together the way we're working towards, are going to be able to play soccer in that park within walking distance of their homes, bike distance of their homes, and that can be where the next Caleb Wiley develops, falls in love with the game. That can be where the next Ephraim Morales, the next Noah Cobb. That can be where a future U.S. men's national team or U.S. women's national team player falls in love with the game and where they got their start. That's where it can happen. There's nothing in the water in different parts of the country that make national team players sprout up. It's infrastructure, and this is something that hits infrastructure from so many different levels, and that's why I think it's important for both of us to support this project. If you're a soccer person, it's very important because it gives more kids a chance to play. If you love your community, it's very important because it gives kids a safe place to be active and to meet other kids and learn things that we learn through sports that we don't have to think about. Conflict resolution, for example.
Yep.
We're playing pickup. You think it's a foul. I don't think it's a foul. We got to figure that out, sort it out.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that through sport, when it happens in the workplace, for example, you don't know how to deal with it. It's so important. Spaces like this go beyond the sport aspect of it, and they just make the community a better place. And this one specifically, being in an area where there's a lot of kids who can get there on their own, which takes the transportation issue out of it, it's going to get used. It's going to get used a lot, and it's going to change the community around it for sure.
Yeah, that was actually one of the points that I wanted to hit on, because as a Henry County resident, we know the traffic in this county. And
as a former Henry County resident who drives through Henry County quite a bit, I know the traffic.
It's really funny. I had, a few years ago, I had the privilege to be able to go up to UGA when Kirby Smart first started coaching. And he went around to every table from the guests that were there.
Yeah.
And
I can only imagine where this is going.
Chatted with everybody. And he said, he got over to our table and he said, "Hey, where y'all from?" We're like, "Hey, we're from Henry County." And he goes, "Oh, the biggest parking lot in the state of Georgia. And he was like, my in-laws live down that way, so I'm very familiar with. As soon as you get to Henry County on the interstate, traffic just stops.
Why do you think Kirby flies around in a helicopter?
Right.
If he's coming to visit any high school prospects in Henry County, he's definitely using the helicopter.
Yep, bypass everything. But that's the thing. You know, this particular mini pitch, and admittedly a lot of them, whether it's here or anywhere, they're in places where they're easily accessible to people that don't need to get in a car.
Yep.
You can ride a bike, you can walk. I mean, this one is just outside the McDonough Square, so it's great for so many kids because it is in a pretty residential area. You have the opportunity to not rely on your parents to drive you 30 minutes away or an hour away, depending on traffic. You can safely cross one street and you're there, and you can go have fun for an afternoon. You can go develop those connections, make new friends, the whole 9 yards. And yeah, it's a blessing, honestly, because it's something that this county doesn't have, but this county needs desperately, as one of the metro counties that maybe over the years hasn't gotten as much love as maybe the north side. This is a huge thing.
As somebody who grew up on the south side, first born in Clayton County and going through elementary school in Clayton County, we moved away when my dad got transferred to Lexington, Kentucky. Came back, went to Eagles Landing High School, so came back when I was a junior in high school, and have been in the Stockbridge, Henry County area for a long time in my life. The south side of Atlanta has not gotten the same opportunities. It was like that when I was a kid. It's still like that. And what's cool about this is the community partnerships that are coming together to make this opportunity happen. The city of McDonough has been an amazing partner for the foundation on this, the Georgia Revolution, obviously, but the Southern Crescent Soccer Foundation and their sponsors all coming together for a good cause. And again, like we said, it's a cause that goes beyond the soccer aspect of it. That's not, insignificant, but it is not the only benefit to having something like this. It's getting harder and harder for kids to have safe places to play. Just play, period. Whatever they want to play. That's just the reality of where we are in society. There's more and more things being built. There's less play space. There's less green space. This is taking something that is right now not play space, making it play space, and giving those kids an opportunity to benefit all those different things around play. That is so important, whether they end up becoming the next Caleb Wiley, the next Emily Sonnet, or not, whether they just have a good time, whether they meet a lifelong friend, and that's where they hang out, whether they learn a skill that they don't really think about until you get into a job situation and you're like, oh, okay, I can handle this now. I kind of remember things that I learned as a kid. Like, sport is so important for that. Spaces to play are so important for that. But building connections in the community are so important for that as well.
Yeah, you mentioned conflict resolution, and I think that's one of the things that is very underrated about sports in general, but especially sports where, your example earlier, it's not like you have refs there to tell you the right answer in their eyes. You have to figure it out. And that may seem like such a mundane thing at the time, but then years down the road, it comes back in a great way for you, because admittedly, the way society is evolving at this point, kids are having less of those opportunities. And then you go back to COVID, right? You had kids that missed, a year or two of school, of having those interpersonal relationships.
Yep.
And this is something that can help kind of, maybe not accelerate it, but bring things back a little bit. And it may be its own little speck in the grand scheme of things, but it gives these kids an opportunity to get out, interact with others. I'll be the first one to tell you, I love video games. I play them all the time.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you're not going to get the personal skills that you need from playing on Xbox Live. It's just not.
Not entirely.
Yeah,
no.
I mean, there might be a little bit of...
There's things you can learn that can definitely help you. You can learn from everything, but... Yeah, it's different.
For sure. And this is one of those things where you have now just one extra space, and what makes it so great is that it is easily accessible. And that doesn't just go for this one. That goes for all of them. You know, kids are taking advantage of these things all over the state, and like you said, all over the country with what U.S. Soccer's doing. So it's just a again, I said it a minute ago, it's a blessing, and it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, it's such an amazing situation that we're seeing here with this particular space in McDonough, but also just with the idea of where the game is. You know, I think for me, soccer has taught me so much about people, and a lot of different ways. It's taught me how to get along with people from different backgrounds. I've met people from different backgrounds that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to if I wasn't involved in soccer. It's taught me about the world. When I was a kid, I didn't know what Argentina was. I didn't grow up in a family that had the means to travel internationally. I'd never traveled internationally until I started working in soccer. You know, like these are things that the game has, I've been fortunate enough that it's given me. I hope that it can pass that to other people as well. And if you don't have the places to play, if you don't have the means to do it, the access to do it, that's kind of the word that I keep coming back to in this game right now, as it's growing and it's amazing and there's all these great things happening. We can't forget the big picture of access. It's not an expensive game to play. It shouldn't be. You do have to pay people for expertise in coaching and development, and if it's individual training, there's a million different things that come up that are like legitimate skills that people put time and training into. That it's a business. I get that. That's fine. But there shouldn't be a roadblock to kids playing, and access has to be a very important thing. I always subscribe to the theory of think global and act local. So big picture, we need to have more kids playing. It needs to be more affordable. You're never going to truly get rid of pay to play, but you need to make it where it doesn't exclude kids from playing. You need more places to play. You need better coaching. You need better refereeing. All these different things that we need to do and we need to work on. But when you get the opportunities to act locally, and in this case, act with some great partners and make something like this happen, that's where we have to put our emphasis in. If you've gained anything from the game, you have to give back, and this is a huge opportunity to do it. I'm excited that we get a chance to do it. I'm really excited that the folks here at Sweet Auburn BBQ gave up some of their time to us to be able to do this, help promote this. The city of McDonough, all the different partners that are involved in this, it doesn't happen without that. And bringing all these different folks together has been very, very cool.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, soccer it's a cultural game. We call it the world's game. We call it the beautiful game for a reason.
Yep.
But, you know, when you go and you look at the way that this game is growing now, you said it best. If you've ever gotten anything from soccer, give something back. Obviously, this is an opportunity, but this is one of those where, you know, this might get a mom or dad into the game. Yeah. Just enough to understand what it is that their kid is so obsessed with, you know? And, yeah, you talk about the Caleb Wileys, the Emily Sonnets of the world, and shout out to the women's game, by the way, because it is, and it is massive, but seeing what they did in Atlanta was, it was phenomenal. The fact that you had that many people show up, and it felt just like almost like an Atlanta United game, you know? So that's a sidebar, maybe a different conversation for another day. But it all comes down to this kind of stuff, right? It comes down to building the game from the ground up. And it's easy to spend a ton of money and insert a professional team into a city. If you've got the Arthur Blanks of the world, they want to do that. But building it from the ground up is something different entirely, and this is kind of where you're at. This is what you're doing with little baby steps like this, and it may seem small, but in the grand scheme of things, this could be a place that develops core memories for many, many children in the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, if you get this field up and running in the next year, and it is available to community events. There's going to be organized training there. There's going to be free play. There's going to be all these different aspects to it. You can easily have thousands upon thousands of hours spent by kids playing there. Hundreds and thousands of kids who have access to play here in a year, let alone the next year, and it starts to multiply and it adds. You build one, there's going to be more that are going to happen over time, because other aspects of the community, other areas are going to say, hey, we want one of those too, because this is hyper local. This is not about having tournaments with buses of teams coming in from all over the Southeast. This is about that neighborhood, those kids riding a bike, walking. There's going to be other neighborhoods that need these things. You're at a point right now where at the greater Atlanta area is Soccer City, USA.
Yep.
And I know some of our friends up in the Pacific Northwest are probably very bent out of shape when we say that.
Or St. Louis.
Sorry
yeah,
is all I can say. It's not going to change. It's only going to continue to increase. And these are the kinds of things that take it to the next level. Because you're right, and we've seen this in other parts of the country over the years. You can cut a check and drop a team in and have a good business. It can be a thriving business. It can be an entertaining business that maybe without the intentional aspect to it changes lives. We're lucky here that somebody like Arthur Blank is doing this because this is his passion. You know, getting a chance to talk to him over the years, getting a chance to see him in action, supporting soccer in the streets when we did events, and being out on the field, handing water to his guys who are playing in a fundraising tournament like a soccer dad would. It's his passion. It's, I think, really what maybe increasingly he wants to be remembered for is his impact on the game. So we're lucky that we have somebody who's not just doing a good business thing, but is doing a good community thing. And now other groups are able to use that platform and run with it and impact their communities. And this is only going to continue to increase, and it's just a really exciting thing. If you're listening to this later on, or if you're here, scsoccerfoundation.com is the website for the Southern Crescent Soccer Foundation. This is part of an effort to build a mini pitch at Alexander Park in McDonough. Hopefully we can put all the pieces together to get that done over the next year and have it up and running for kids to have access to play soccer in a safe space and grow from the game. Any final words from you, Tyler? We kind of went really deep on this.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure that's where we were going to go as we started talking, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, I'll take this kind of conversation all day. It means a lot, I think, to a lot of people that you'll never know. You know, if you, and I don't want to sound like a salesman, but this, if you put money into this, you donate money to this, whatever type of support you may want to do, this kind of stuff is, it may just be $10 or whatever here or there, but for a bunch of kids 2 years from now, when the World Cup is being played here in our backyard, this becomes so much more.
They hear about it on TV or on radio, and maybe they don't get a chance to go to a game, but they hear about it and they're like, hey, let's go play.
Yeah.
And they actually can.
Yeah. I mean, because even for the most, I don't know, off the wall, like separated person from the game, from soccer, the mom or dad, the person who, grew up a football fan, whatever. Yep. When the World Cup rolls around, there's a little bit of a fever to it.
Yeah.
And it is infectious. And yeah, so you say, hey, the World Cup's coming to Atlanta, Georgia. Those kids are going to be the ones who are going to come out, and they're going to want to have a place to go play. They're going to want to step out. They're going to want to go and be able to put what they're seeing on TV into practice out in their backyard.
Yep.
And it's easy to say, hey, we'll go outside and kick a ball around. Cool. Not everybody has that. But now this is an opportunity to build something that when we say, hey, go kick a ball around, you have a place that you can go to. And you can go be the next Maradona, or you can be the next Lionel Messi or Almada or whoever. So it's a great thing. It's a it's a needed thing, and I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's been very, very cool. As somebody who, kind of by accident fell into the soccer for social change side of the game. I'd worked in the professional game when I was in college. Was lucky to start working for soccer in the streets at a time when the organization was very, very small. So learned how to do a lot of things by necessity to help try to grow the organization. And you got to see really quickly the impact that the game can have. Whether it's kids who stuck with it, whether it's kids who just were benefited from having access to it at a school, for example, you see the impact that the game can have. And I think for me, that kind of crystallized the impact that it had on me. And I didn't really know how to quantify exactly. And I made a decision a long time ago that I wanted to try to use whatever time, energy, job, career, and now this was before the Atlanta United side of things came into it. I always wanted to try to have that component of making things better in the community that I'm in, and it's such an important aspect to it. And like you said, it might be a $10 donation. It might be the percentage of your check sitting here today at Sweet Auburn BBQ that goes to this. It might not seem like a lot. It is a lot. For nonprofits like the Southern Crescent Soccer Foundation, every dollar is a lot. And you can stretch that when you give $1 and I give $1, another dollar comes here, and you can start to multiply, because what it does is it can provide an outlet for kids to be kids, to learn skills that will help them be better adults, and provide access to something that has changed your life. It's changed my life. It's changed anybody who's been involved in the game. It's changed their lives. That's what this is all about. So if you want to get involved, scsoccerfoundation.com. That's the Southern Crescent Soccer Foundation. Big thank you to everybody here at Sweet Auburn BBQ and McDonough for supporting this. Thank you to everybody who came out to our Topgolf event earlier in the year. There's going to be more opportunities for you to give and get involved. And then once it's up and running, there's going to be opportunities to come out and volunteer and help with providing access to the game in those communities. But most importantly, there's going to be opportunities for the kids to come out and play. So we can't wait to get this done. Thank you to everybody for helping to do that. And there will be plenty more of opportunities for you to get involved and to help out. Southern Crescent Soccer Foundation, scsoccerfoundation.com. Please also, when you're on the south side and you hit that parking lot on I-75, get off at Jonesboro Road, come over to Sweet Auburn BBQ, and one of the best barbecue spots in Atlanta. There's locations all over. This is the third one that I've had a chance to visit, and it is incredible food. So if you get in that parking lot, you don't want to sit in the parking lot, come over to Sweet Auburn BBQ and McDonough. It's right off the interstate at the Jonesboro Road exit. Thanks for hanging out with us today. A Soccer Down Here Scarves and Spikes crossover episode. I'm Jason Longshore for Tyler Pilgrim. Thanks for hanging out with us. Have a good rest of the day.